This is problem number 1 of the practice problems. And in these problems, supposed to describe or explain the slope and the intercept for each situation. The first situation is an equilateral triangle. Now, an equilateral triangle is a triangle that has 3 equal sides. And so what's the relationship between the perimeter of an equilateral triangle, so the distance all the way around, and the distance of one of the sides? Well, each of the sides are the same length, so the perimeter is 3 times that length. So the side length is the same, and so the perimeter is going to be 3 times that length. So the distance around is 3 times the length of one of the sides. So the total distance around y is 3 times the length of the side. So if I used unit lengths, so 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units, the length around is going to be 3 times 1 unit, or 3 units. For a side length of 2 units, it's going to be another 3 units, or a total of 6 units. For 3 units, it's going to be 3 times 3, or 9 units. So for every unit length, the perimeter, the distance all the way around that triangle, increases by 3 units because there are 3 equal sides. So it's times 3. Now there is no beginning amount. So it goes through 0, 0 here. Because if you don't have any length of the side, you have no length of the perimeter. So it goes through 0. So once again, y, the total length around, is 3 times the length of a side, because there are 3 equal sides. Now the length of the side doesn't have to be a whole number. It can be 1.5, it can be 5 3/4. It could be another number or length other than a whole number, but there's still going to be 3 equal lengths that are going to be that length. So it's times 3. Okay, for the B problem, there is money in a cash box. So the money y in a cash box after X tickets are sold. So X is the number of tickets sold. And so you look in the cash box, there's already $8 before you sell any tickets, because the y-intercept is $8. So this is $8 beginning in the cash box before you sell any tickets. And then each ticket you make 1/4 of a dollar. So that's the slope, 1/4 of a dollar for each ticket sold. So that's 25 cents. So if you take the money in the cash box after that beginning amount, so if you subtract that beginning amount, y minus 8, and divide that by the number of tickets sold, that has to equal 25 cents, because each ticket costs 1/4 of a dollar. So that means that the money in the cash box after removing that $8 is going to equal 1/4 times the number of tickets, because each of these tickets costs 1/4 of a dollar, or 25 cents. So the amount of money is going to be 1/4 the number of tickets. So the total amount of money that you have now in the cash box is that 25 cents, or 1/4 of a dollar, for every ticket sold, plus that $8 that were in the beginning in the cash box. So you have to add that $8 in the cash box to start with. So the slope is 1/4. That's 25 cents for each ticket. So the change in y after that $8 is going to be 25 cents for each ticket. So you go out one ticket, increases 25 cents. Go out another ticket, increases another 25 cents. Go out another ticket, increases another 25 cents. And so finally, if you go out 4 tickets, that's an increase of 4 times 1/4, or 4 times 25 cents, which is $1. So you have to sell 4 tickets to get an increase here of $1. For C, this is reading chapters in a book over a number of days. So X is the number of days, Y is the chapters read in a book. And before this person starts to keep track of the chapters read for each day, they've already read 2 chapters. So this is beginning at 2 chapters. So the y-axis, the values along the y-axis are the number of chapters read. And so you're already starting, you already have a head start of 2 chapters. And so if you want to figure out the number of chapters read after these 2 chapters, you take that amount, so you subtract the 2 chapters, and you take what's left, and you divide that by the number of days. That's going to equal 5/4, because 5/4 is the number of chapters read each day. 1 1/4 of a chapter are read each day. So the slope of the line is 5/4. So each day this increases 5/4 chapters, or 1 1/4 chapter. You go out another day, it increases 1 1/4 chapters, or 5/4. Go out another day, it increases 1 1/4 chapters, or 5/4. So if you want to figure out the total number of chapters read, you have to multiply 5/4, the number of chapters read each day, times the number of days. So that makes sense. Read 5/4 of a chapter each day times 5 days. It's going to be 5 times 5/4. But then you also have to add that 2 chapters that you had as a head start. So there's 2 things that you're figuring out here. One is what's happened after the head start. So that's a increase of 5/4 chapters each day. So that's this y minus 2. You take away that 2 chapters, and that's equal to 5/4 chapters each day. If you divide by the number of days up here, that's going to equal that 5/4. So the slope is calculated by taking away the initial 2 chapters and dividing what's left by the number of days. That's going to tell you what the slope is. What's the change per day? 5/4 of a chapter per day. And the other calculation that you can make then is what's the total number of chapters that you've read? Well, it's 5/4 of a chapter each day plus that beginning 2 chapters. And the last problem, D, is cost of muffins after or with a delivery fee. So the delivery fee is $3. So the y-intercept is 3, and the slope is 2. So you go out 1 muffin, and 1 muffin costs $2. So that's the slope, $2 per 1 muffin. And the delivery fee is $3, regardless of the number of muffins sold. So here's the delivery fee. So that's a head start. So you're starting at $3. And to figure out what the cost of just the muffins are, you have to subtract that $3 and then divide by the number of muffins you purchased. So that's dividing by X, and that's going to equal $2 per muffin. So you're asking the question, gee, how much did I spend per muffin? Well, you subtract the beginning $3, and you take the amount of money that's left, and you divide it by the number of muffins that you have in front of you, and that has to equal 2. I spent $2 per muffin. So then if you want to figure out what's the total amount of money that I spent on these muffins, that's going to be the $2 for each muffin. So X is the number of muffins times 2. So it's going to change. Y is going to change by $2 by 2 each muffin, or by $2 each muffin. So you multiply the number of muffins that you purchased times that $2, but then you have to add in the delivery fee. So you're going to pay the bill. How much is this going to cost me? Well, let's see here. That's $2 for each muffin, so that's 2 times. You purchased 10 muffins. 2 times 10 is $20, but then you have to also pay the $3 delivery fee. So your cost for those 10 muffins is going to be $23. So you go out here to 10, and you go up here, and it's going to be at $23. And you subtract the 3, that's going to bring it down to $20 for just the muffins. Okay, this is problem number 2. And this problem compares Lynn's favorite brownie recipe to Noah's favorite brownie recipe. And what they do in this case is they give you the information for Noah in the form of a table. So that's one representation of the information. And they give you the information for Lynn in the form of a graph. So that's a second representation of the data. And so when I look at this kind of problem, the first thing that I figure out is what is the constant of proportionality, which is the same as the slope for both situations. Then you can use that to compare each recipe. So let's do that. So the slope for Lynn's graph is the number of cups of sugar for how many cups of flour. So if you, actually I said that backwards. So how many cups of flour are used for a number of cups of sugar? So 2 cups of sugar, you use 1 cup of flour. So 3 cups of sugar, you use 1.5 cups of flour. 4 cups of sugar, you use 2 cups of flour. And down here, you want to get to how much flour is used for a single cup of sugar. That's the unit rate. So how much is used for 1 unit? Well, for 1 cup of sugar, you use 1/2 cup of flour. So the answer, the slope, is 1/2. So for each increase, each unit increase in sugar, 1 cup increase in sugar, flour increases by 1/2 cup. 1 cup of sugar increased by 1/2 cup. 1 cup of sugar increased by 1/2 cup. So now let's use those numbers to figure this out mathematically. So the slope is the amount of change in the cups of flour divided by the amount of change in the cups of sugar. That's going to tell you how much there's a change for a single cup of sugar. And that answer is 1/2. So y is 1/2 of the amount of x. So the cups of flour are 1/2 the number of units of sugar. So y equals 1/2 the number of units of x. So flour is equal to 1/2 the number of units of sugar. So flour right here is 1/2, so this is 1, is 1/2 the number of units of sugar. So this is 2. So the number of cups of flour is 1/2 the number of cups of sugar. So this is 2, and that's 1/2 of the number of cups of sugar, which is 4. So let's remember that this amount for 2 cups of flour is 4 cups of sugar. So we're going to use that to figure out which recipe is sweeter in just a moment. So 4 cups of sugar, you need 2 cups of flour. So you need half the number of cups of flour for the number of cups of sugar. All right, so for Noah, which is in the form of a table, so in this case, you'd figure out the constant of proportionality. So how much flour do you use for each cup of sugar? So you take the number of cups of flour, and the easiest one to use is the second row right here. Take the number of cups of flour, 2 cups of flour, and you divide that by the number of cups of sugar. So this is y divided by x, which is 2 divided by 3, which equals 2/3. 2 divided by 3 equals 2/3 of a cup of flour for each cup of sugar. So 2/3, 2 divided by 3 is equal to 2/3. And then you can check that by using the first row. So if you take the value of y, the number of cups of flour, divided by the number of cups of sugar, that's y divided by 3/2. So you better get 2/3 because that's the constant of proportionality. So y divided by 3/2, which is the number of cups of flour divided by the number of cups of sugar. So 1 divided by 3/2 equals 1 divided by 3/2. Now to solve that, you're going to use the inverse and the inverse. So the inverse operation and the multiplicative inverse. It doesn't make any sense to just use the inverse operation because this problem is 1 divided by 3/2. And then you said, oh, I'm going to use the inverse operation and said 1 times 3/2. Doesn't make any sense. This problem is 1 divided by 3/2. So you have to use the inverse operation and the multiplicative inverse. So this is 1 times 2/3, which gives you an answer of 2/3, which matches this answer down here. So they are correct. It is correct that the constant of proportionality is 2/3. So which recipe is sweeter? So back here for Lynn, for 4 cups of sugar, she used 2 cups of flour. So if I read it the opposite way, how much sugar is used for 2 cups of flour? That's going to be twice as much sugar. So notice you're using now the reciprocal of the constant of proportionality. So the reciprocal of 1/2 is 2. So the amount of sugar used is twice as much, or times 2, the amount of flour that's used. So 2 cups of flour uses 4 cups of sugar. So here's the 2 cups of flour for Noah. How much sugar did he use? He used, so you go back the other way. Actually, it's just in the table, so you don't have to calculate it. He used 3 cups of sugar. So he used less sugar for the same amount of flour. So Lynn's recipe is sweeter. She's using more sugar. She's using 4 cups of sugar, whereas Noah is only using 3 cups of sugar. So notice that this is 3 parts, and this is 4 parts for the same amount of flour. So we're going to come back to that in a few moments. All right, so now this problem says, Noah and Lynn both, they buy a 12-cup bag of sugar together, and then they split that bag in half and use it for each of their recipes. So they divide it evenly, or they split it in half. So each are going to use 6 cups of sugar. So the x value over here is 6 cups of sugar. So how do you figure out how much flour that is? Well, the amount of flour is 2/3 the amount of sugar. So that's what that constant of proportionality tells you. The amount of flour, y, is 2/3 the amount of sugar, which is x. So if you're given 6 cups of sugar, you multiply that by 2/3, that equals 4 cups of flour. So 6 divided by 3 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. So for 6 cups of sugar, you're going to use 4 cups of flour. So 4 cups of flour for 6 cups of sugar. It's useful in this case to use the equation. So 6 cups of sugar, she uses half that amount for the number of cups of flour. So the number of cups of flour, y, is equal to half the amount of sugar. 6 cups of sugar, half of 6 is 3 cups of flour. So 3 cups of flour, 4 cups of flour. All right, so Noah and Lynn both buy together a 10-cup bag of flour, and they divide that evenly. So now they're going to use 5 cups of flour. So for Noah, the table's right here, so let's use this table. So now we're going to go backwards. So we're going to go from the cups of flour to the amount of sugar. Well, the amount of sugar is 3/2. It's greater than the amount of flour. So 3/2 times 5. So this one is easier to multiply first. 5 times 3 is 15/2. And if you separate the 15 into 14 plus 1, 14/2 is 7. And then add that 1/2 is 7.5. And you may be able to look at that and realize, all right, so Noah uses 3 parts, and then Lynn is going to use 4 parts. Well, 3 parts is 3 times 2.5. So 3 times 2.5 is 7.5. It's like 3 times 25 is 75, or 3 times 1/4 is 3/4. So how much is Lynn going to use? She's going to use 4 parts of that 2.5. So 4 times 2.5, or 4 times 25 cents, is equal to 10 cups in this case. So you can predict that she's going to use 10 cups. All right, so now we're going to go backwards. The amount of sugar is twice the amount of flour. So you're using the multiplicative inverse, or the reciprocal. So I have the amount of sugar, it's going to be twice, 2 times the amount of flour. 2 times 5 is equal to 10 cups of sugar. Twice the amount of sugar for the amount of flour that's used. So she uses 10 cups of sugar for 5 cups of flour. Noah uses 7.5 cups of sugar for 5 cups of flour. So this is less sweet. It's using less amount of sugar for that 5 cups of flour. So 2 representations. Go for the constant proportionality, which is the same as the slope first. Figure that out first, and then you can use that to solve the problem. Okay, this is the last problem, problem number 3. And this is about a gym membership. So a customer pays a membership fee and then pays a certain amount of money for each class. So a fee for each class that they attend. And so this graph shows that relationship right here. And so what you're supposed to do is explain what the meaning of the slope is of this line that's made up of these points, and then what's the meaning of where this vertical intercept is. Where does this line cross the y-axis? That's the vertical intercept or the y-intercept. It crosses at $60. So what does that $60 mean? And what does the increase for each class mean as you go up this line? So let's zoom in on this a little bit. So every class, there's an increase of $20. So you take one class, goes up $20. Another class goes up $20. Another class goes up $20. So the slope is the change in the cost compared to the number of classes taken. And it's the change in the cost after the initial membership fee. So you have to subtract that membership fee, so that's y minus 60, and then you divide that by the number of classes you take. So that's the x. So every time you take one class, it goes up $20. So y minus 60, that's $80 for this first class. So take that $80, subtract the $60 membership fee, you're left with $20. $20 divided by one class is equal to 20. So the slope is 20. If you took two classes, you do that subtraction, you're going to end up with $40. So this is going to be $100 minus that 60. You're going to end up with $40, and 40 divided by two classes is going to give you, again, the slope of 20, a slope of 20 or $20 for each class. So you subtract your fee for the membership, so y minus 60, that's going to equal 20 times the number of classes, because it is $20 for each class. And so the total amount of money that you pay is the $20 for each class plus that $60 membership fee. So if you subtract that $60 to figure out what its costs for each class, what your cost is for the classes that you take, to get the total cost, you have to add that membership fee back. So it's $20 per class, and it's $60 membership fee. So your total cost is that $20 for each class, $20 per class, plus the $60 membership fee that you begin with. So if you have a total cost and you want to know what that cost is for just the classes, you subtract the $60. That's going to be y minus 60 is going to be the cost for just the classes. Then if you divide by the number of classes, that will tell you the cost for each class, which is that $20. Working backwards a little bit. So if you divide by the number of classes after you subtracted the membership fee, that's going to tell you the cost that you paid for each class, $20 per class.